Okay, before we start, just number one, please turn on your web cameras, right? I don't want to be teaching to a bunch of black screens, and also I'm sure you have heard by now that Zoom has some security and privacy issues. Means someone can actually just enter our session without us knowing who they are, and so we need your web cameras to be turned on so that we know who you are. Okay, right. So web cameras on, microphones by default off, and then what else? If you can see me and hear me clearly, please say so. Using the chat box, let me know if you can see me. Can you see me? Use the chat box to let me know that if you can see me, and can you hear me clearly? Am I loud and clear? Okay, that's good, right? So we are going to start shortly. Keith, you got to help me pay attention to the participant list, because now you got to manually admit all the students into the room from the waiting room. Right? Okay, good. Thank you. Right, so let's go ahead and start the class then. Let me share desktop 2 with you. Okay, right, let's start. Let me get my drink. Have you had breakfast before class today? This is my breakfast. I'm trying to see what is it. Oh, it's Kinder Bueno. This is my breakfast. I'm gonna have it for breakfast. And after that, I'm gonna have lunch after this. Okay, right. Anyway, let's go ahead and start our class today. Let me see. Okay, so we're doing monetary policy. Okay. Right. Let's start. Okay, right. So when we look at monetary policy, it's part of the series of macroeconomic policies that we are looking at for this whole month, right? So last week we touched on exchange rate policy. This week we are doing monetary policy. Next week will be fiscal, then followed on by supply side. So we will finish macroeconomic policies this month. Okay, and I think the lesson format is going to be always like that. Number one, I have one rule in my classes, which is that you have to turn your web cameras on. It's going to be very painful to teach a class for a whole month staring at black screens, right? So web cameras, please turn on, let's cooperate. It's also for security reasons. We don't want to admit students whom we don't know who they are into the class, right? Or maybe they're not even students, they might be like, I don't know, 30, 40-year-old uncles coming in to listen to us for fun. So we don't want that. Right, so please make sure that your web cameras are turned on. Your microphones have to be muted to do crowd control, but you can always ask questions using the chat box. You know that I can see the questions that you ask using the chat box, so you are always welcome to ask questions throughout the lesson using the chat box. As and when I have a dual screen set up, so I will be able to see your messages even as I'm teaching, right? Just that I might be a bit slow in terms of responding lah. Right, so as and when it is possible, I will let you ask questions, and I'll also address these questions during class. If you have any like major questions that you want to ask, you can always ask them after class. The last 15 to 20 minutes of the session will always be reserved for Q&A. Alright, and then that's where you can turn on your microphones and we will go through the questions that you have together. Okay, and you in my class, feel free, you should know, even in regular class, you're welcome to eat lunch. Even in regular class, you're welcome to eat anything. So don't be too concerned about like etiquette or whatsoever. If you have random half-naked fathers walking around, that's totally fine. We are okay with that. right? You have a dog or you have a cat that you need to hug while you are going through lessons, that's also totally fine. We have no such etiquette issues here. I'm not staring at you all day long. I'm trying to teach, right? So it's okay, don't worry too much about it. We know that it's a difficult period. Okay, let's do our best, make sure that we try to learn as constructively as we can. Alright, so okay, back to monetary policy. Okay, what exactly does monetary policy means? Okay, monetary policy, the monetary here refers to money supply. Okay, so monetary policy is about changing the money supply. Why do you want to change the money supply? You want to change the money supply because you want to change interest rates. And why do you want to change interest rates? Because interest rates influences consumption and interest rate influences investments. So at the end of the day, what are you trying to influence? You're trying to change AD. Okay, you're trying to use monetary policy. Okay, you're trying to use monetary policy to influence aggregate demand. That's what you're really trying to do with monetary policy. Okay, so that's the long story cut short about monetary policy. So monetary policy is about changing money supply to change interest rates. When you change interest rates, then you can change AD. Alright, so that's what monetary policy is about. One more thing about monetary policy that you need to know is that monetary policy is conducted by the central bank of a country. The central bank of a country, every country has a central bank. So your Central Bank of Singapore is MAS lah, Monetary Authority of Singapore lah. Central Bank for US is Federal Reserve. Central Bank for Eurozone is European Central Bank. Japan, Bank of Japan. Okay, so the monetary policy of each country is conducted by the central bank. So don't really quite use the term government, use the term central bank, because central bank is supposed to be independent of the government. Okay, now, so what is expansionary monetary policy? Expansionary monetary policy actually means to increase money supply. Contractionary monetary policy means to decrease money supply. Why do you want to increase money supply? The purpose of expansionary monetary policy is to increase AD, and the purpose of contractionary monetary policy is to cut AD. Alright, why? When you increase AD, okay, can you see what happens when you increase AD? The purpose of increasing AD is so that your real national income actually increases from Y0 to Y1. So when your real national income increases from Y0 to Y1, what does that help you achieve? Number one, it helps you achieve an increase in economic growth. Okay, and then as you move from Y0 to Y1, your firms hire more factor inputs, including labor. This reduces cyclical unemployment, so there's lower unemployment. Okay, on the other hand, when we are doing contractionary monetary policy, why exactly are we trying to cut AD? We are trying to cut AD because okay, why are we trying to cut AD? We are trying to cut AD because when you cut AD from AD0 to AD1, okay, your prices fall from P0 to P1, right? So you can see that your general price level actually goes down, and that is the aim of contractionary monetary policy. You are trying to cut AD because it helps you to address inflation. It helps you to reduce demand pull inflation. Okay, then what has this got to do with your balance of payments? It helps you to improve balance of payments because when you cut AD, right, your real national income, right, Keith, there's a person who named himself student. You gotta check his identity, now you gotta kick him out. Okay, I admitted him, but you check with him, you private message him and find out who he is. Okay, so sorry, back to the lesson. When your real national income falls, can you see here that actually when you carry out a cut in AD, your real national income actually falls here like that from Y0 to Y1. And when your Y0 falls to Y1, what has that got to do with balance of payment? It has got to do with balance of payments because when your real national income falls, people have less purchasing power. They have less money to spend. If they have less money to spend, they will buy less goods and services. When they buy less goods and services, your imported goods also fall because they will buy less imported goods. When they buy less imported goods, your current account will see an improvement because the import expenditure falls. So when your current account sees an improvement, then your balance of payment sees an improvement. So that is the reason why contractionary monetary policy helps to actually improve your balance of payments. So you can see that why would you carry out expansionary monetary policy and why would you carry out contractionary monetary policy. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and erase this and move on to the next slide. Okay, now next we are gonna spend time talking about how exactly that your monetary policy works. Okay, so we're gonna go through how actually monetary policy works. Let's cover this very important term today called open market operations. Now, open market operations, there are a few kinds, and we are not going to have the time to go through every single one of them. So there are some parts of open market operations I'll ask you to do some self-study. Okay, you can go and Google. Right, what is open market operations? This first one, changing reserve requirements, we're not going to go through today. The next one, changing discount rate, we're also not going to go through today. These two methods are less commonly used methods by countries to actually change monetary policy to do open market operations. What we're going to spend time going through today is this one. Okay, which is to actually influence money supply via buying and selling of government bonds. Okay, buying and selling of government bonds. Alright, so how do we buy and sell government bonds? Alright, okay, if I know who is Andrea, it's fine. It's the person that calls himself student that you need to verify the identity. The one with the username student. The one is unknown. Okay, we're gonna explain to you how does buying and selling a government bond works, right? So this is gonna be a little bit complicated. So I hope you will be able to catch what I'm doing here. Okay, first, before I even start, I'm going to explain to you what the heck is a bond because a lot of people don't know what is a bond. Okay, what is a bond? Okay, let's say COVID crisis, right? Economics at Tuition Genius has trouble, okay, paying rents or paying its employees because of the COVID-19 crisis. Or in a non-COVID-19 crisis situation, Economics at Tuition Genius wants to expand to a new branch, okay, but doesn't have the money to do so. Okay, so what Economics at Tuition Genius can do possibly is to issue this thing called a bond. Okay, what exactly is a bond? A bond is a piece of paper that is a legal financial instrument that says this. So this piece of paper is called a bond, for example. What does a bond do? So I will say, hey, I'm selling this bond. Okay, this bond is, the value of this bond is going to be $100,000. Okay, if you buy this bond, okay, as long as you hold on to this bond, every year legally I need to pay you an interest of, let's say, 3%. And this bond matures in 5 years. Okay, so what this means is that if you buy this bond from me, okay, as long as you're holding on to this bond, okay, so how you buy this bond from me is you pay me money, you pay me like 100,000 to buy this piece of bond. So now you are the holder of this bond. Because you are the holder of this bond says that the interest rate is 5% per year. So every year, I will need to pay you 5% interest as long as you are the holder of this bond. Then there is a maturity period of this bond. Say the maturity period of this bond is, say, 5 years. Okay, that means to say at the end of 5 years, I need to buy back this bond from you at the original price or whatever the value of the bond is, say 100,000. I need to buy back this bond from you at the value of the bond price. Okay, so why would you buy this bond then? Because you want to earn some interest. Then why would I issue this bond then? Because I need money, right? So this is the concept of a bond, all right? Now, other than economics execution genius, okay, if economics execution genius issues a bond, it's called a corporate bond. Okay, if the government issues a bond, then it is called a government bond. Alright, so that is the concept of what is a bond. Alright, it's just a piece of paper, okay, that promises you to pay you a certain interest, but you need to give this person money first. Alright, now, and then after that, at the end of it, you can buy back the bond, okay, from whoever you sell the bond to. Now, let me explain to you how, therefore, monetary policy works. Hey, monetary policy works how? Okay, first, I'm going to color central bank as blue so that you don't get confused. Okay, so central bank, in case it's too small, I'll show you this is central bank. Central bank is the one that is in blue. Okay, now I want to carry out contractionary monetary policy. If I'm the central bank and I want to carry out contractionary monetary policy, CMP, contractionary monetary policy, how do I go about doing that? Now, I do so by issuing and selling government bonds. Okay, so I'm the central bank. I decided to actually go and what I want to do is I want to do contractionary monetary policy. If you remember what contractionary monetary policy means, contractionary monetary policy means I want to reduce the money supply available in the economy. Okay, now, so how do I go about carrying out contractionary monetary policy? Now, I first go to the open market. Open market means market lah. It's a market for financial instruments lah. I go to open market and I'll ask commercial banks, I'll ask financial institutions, I'll ask very rich people. Hello, I have these government bonds. They are $10 million a piece or $1 million a piece. Okay, anybody wants to buy these bonds from me, I'm willing to pay you a 3% interest every year. Okay, who wants to buy these government bonds? So I go ahead, okay, and I go to the open market. I go to all these commercial banks. Commercial banks would be like Citibank, Bank of America, rich billionaires, financial institutions. I'll go to them, okay, I'll go to them and then I'll do what? I'll say that, hey, anybody want to buy bonds from me? Okay, so if you were a commercial bank and you were a rich billionaire and then you have some money lying around, you're saying that, okay, government bond might be a good investment because I've got some spare cash. Okay, if I've got some spare cash, I may want to actually sell these government bonds. I may want to buy these government bonds from the government. So these banks, these commercial banks, these financial institutions, these rich people, what do they hand over? They hand over truckloads of cash to the central bank in exchange for these government bonds. So the government, okay, or rather the central bank passes these government bonds to these commercial banks, to these financial institutions, where these commercial banks and financial institutions, they now hand over money, cold hard cash to the central bank. Okay? And then what does the central bank does with this money? It takes it out of circulation. It puts it in a drawer. Okay? It keeps it. Okay? It keeps it. It doesn't touch it. It doesn't uses it. It keeps it. It won't touch it. Okay? So this money stops circulating in the economy. It doesn't circulate in the economy anymore. Okay, so these commercial banks, right? This Citibank, this Bank of America, these rich individuals, these financial institutions, now they have handed a large portion of their cash to the central bank. Okay, now what's on their mind? On their mind is like, oh no, now that I have less cash available, that means to say I have less money that I can lend out to people who want to borrow money from me. Because remember, what do banks do? Banks lend money, right? And now these banks, they have less loanable funds available. If they have less loanable funds available and there is the same amount of people who want to actually borrow money, what do they do to allocate these funds? They will actually increase the interest rates. And that is how interest rate go up in contractionary monetary policy. Okay? Right, let's take some time to go through what happens in the case of expansionary monetary policy. Now, central banks carry out contractionary monetary policy in times of very high inflation and they want to cut AD to deal with this inflation. But in times like this, like in this worldwide recession caused by COVID-19 crisis, central banks around the world, They want to stimulate the economy. They want to boost the economy. So how do they go and boost the economy? They carry out this thing called expansionary monetary policy. What is expansionary monetary policy? They're going to do the exact reverse now. Okay, the central bank, they're going to take this money that they kept just now, they're going to take all this money and then they're going to go to the open market. Okay, they go to the open market and do what? They're going to say this. They say that, hey, remember all these government bonds that I sold you a few years ago? Okay, do you still have them? Do you want to sell it back to me early? I can pay you a good price for it. Why don't you sell these bonds back to me? Come, sell it back to me. I'll give you a good price. So these commercial banks and these financial institutions say, okay, that's a good deal. Sure, I'll sell it back to you. Okay, I'll sell it back to you. So these commercial banks, these financial institutions, they will sell back these pieces of paper to the central bank. And then what does the central bank do with these pieces of paper? They destroy it lah. They are the ones that created them, or they can just destroy them. They don't need to do anything with them. They just tear it. They just tear these pieces, shred these pieces of paper apart. Then this piece of paper cease to exist. But now what happens? These truckloads of cash, right? They now put in the hands of commercial banks. They now put in the hands of financial institutions. When they put these truckloads of cash into the hands of financial institutions, into the hands of commercial banks, now these banks, these commercial banks, they have now a lot more money available that they can lend out. Okay, they have a lot more money available that they can lend out. Okay, but there is not enough people who want to borrow this amount of money from them. Okay, what do? They will start to slash interest rates. It brings down interest rates. So interest rate starts to fall. Okay, interest rate starts to fall. And this is how open market operations actually work to actually carry out monetary policy to increase the available money supply or decrease the available money supply in the economy. Okay, so is everybody able to understand and get what exactly I just explained to you? You okay? If you're okay, can you nod your head so I know that you're okay? Right, so everyone okay? Good. Do you understand so far? Alright, because things are gonna get more complicated only. They're not gonna get easier. Today's lesson is pretty nuts. Alright, so let's move on. We go on to the next slide. Okay, so now I'm going to take some time to do some drawing. I suggest you might also want to do the same. You have pen and paper ready, do some drawing together with me. Right, so I'm going to take some time to explain the whole process of monetary policy review in an in-depth fashion. Okay, so now, how does contractionary monetary policy works? Contractionary monetary policy, how does it work? Okay, contractionary monetary policy works this way. So you want to cut money supply, because when you cut money supply, what happens to your interest rates? Your interest rate actually will fall. Okay, so what happens when you cut interest rates? When you cut interest rates, two things happen. Okay, when you cut interest rates, consumption will actually, not cut interest rate, increase interest rates. My bad. This arrow is wrong. It should be increase interest rates. When you increase interest rates, what happens to consumption? Consumers will find that it's a lot more expensive to borrow money now to buy large ticket items like cars. So I'm going to cut back on things like consumption. I'm gonna consume less. Okay, so they're going to consume less and consume less goods and services, so consumption fall. Now firms will find that at a higher interest rates, there are less investments that will be profitable, so your investments will also actually fall. So as your consumption and investment fall, consumption and investment, they are both part of aggregate demand, so your aggregate demand also falls. Okay, so when your aggregate demand falls, what happens? Right, your aggregate demand fall, your general price level will actually fall. Okay, and then therefore this reduces your demand pull inflation. So that is what contractionary monetary policy is supposed to do. Now this is the straightforward process or steps to understand contractionary monetary policy. But sometimes if you want to be a little bit more elaborate, we may add in some diagrams. So how do we add in diagrams? So I'm going to show you part by part. So where can we add in diagrams for this? We can add in one diagram here. So this is diagram number 1. So I'm going to go in and draw in diagram number 1 for you. Okay, what can we draw here to show how fall in money supply will lead to an increase in interest rate? We will draw this diagram called a liquidity preference diagram. So I'm going to label here liquidity preference diagram. Okay, so this is my liquidity preference diagram. So how does the liquidity preference diagram look like? Okay, here we have quantity of money, and then here we have price of money. Class, price of money is just another way of saying interest rates. Quantity of money and price of money. Price of money is just interest rates. Okay, next we're going to draw in the liquidity preference curve. The liquidity preference curve looks like that. Now, liquidity preference is just a fanciful way of saying demand for money. I repeat, the liquidity preference is just a fanciful way of saying demand for money, because liquidity is money. Liquid is money. Then preference is demand. So liquidity preference is just a fanciful way of saying demand for money. Then we're going to put in money supply. So the money supply curve is just a vertical line across. So this is my money supply. My money supply has decreased from MS0 to MS1. So what happens to interest rates? Okay, your interest rate will actually increase from IR0 to IR1. Your interest rates actually go up. Okay, this is the first diagram that I will draw. It's called the liquidity preference diagram. I hope you are okay with the liquidity preference diagram. The next diagram that I'm going to draw is called the MEI diagram. Okay, so where is the MEI diagram going to be? It's going to be here. This is number 2. Okay, so we're going to draw in the MEI diagram. Okay, so your MEI diagram, how does it look like? It's a very easy looking diagram. Okay, how does the MEI diagram look like? Okay, the axis here is volume of investments. Then here will be again interest rates, and it's just simply a downward sloping curve. Okay, so what happens when your interest rate go up from IR0 to IR1? Okay, your investments actually fall from I0 to I1. So when interest rates are higher, your investments actually fall. This MEI curve is short form for marginal efficiency of investment. MEI stands for marginal efficiency of investment. Okay, going to add in a diagram 3. So what happens when AD falls? Diagram 3 here. Okay, what happens when AD falls? Okay, so we have when we cut AD from here to here, okay, what is it that we are doing? If we move from AD0 to AD1, what is it that we are doing? What is it that we're doing is that our prices actually come down from P0 to P1. Okay, now, so I hope you're not too shocked by this, that actually there are a couple of diagrams that you can draw to explain contractionary monetary policy if you want to be impressive. Yeah, I'm going to give you some time to draw this. If you like the damn lazy kind, you can take picture. You can take a picture, or you're very scared that you draw wrongly, you can take a picture. The slides are available on the LMS just without the annotations. Okay, let me know if you are okay to continue to the next slide. Okay, once you are okay to continue to the next slide, all you need to do is to stare at the screen.
Airspace-technologies.com, they say, next flight out, also referred to as
Hey Google, stop. Sorry, I don't know why my Google Home just started playing. Right, if you are done, all you need to do is to just stare at the screen. So I know you are done. If you are like staring down, that means you are still writing, then I will not continue, I will let you finish up first. Okay, if you are done, just stare at your web camera, then I'll know you are done. Okay, some of you look like you're still writing, so I'm going to let you finish writing, so that's okay. Okay, it does look like most of you are done, so I'm gonna erase these, so I'm gonna move on to the next slide. Okay, let's go. Next slide. Expansionary monetary policy. How does expansionary monetary policy works? So same thing. So let's try to do this. Now you try to preempt me. So you try to go like one step ahead of me to challenge yourself to see what are the steps that should be the case. Okay, so what happens for expansionary monetary policy? Expansionary monetary policy means increase money supply. Okay, when you increase money supply, then what happens to interest rates? Interest rates should fall. Okay, with lower interest rates, what does it encourage? Okay, it encourages greater consumption. It encourages greater investment. Why? At lower interest rate, people will find it that it's a good deal to actually borrow to buy things like cars, right? They go and borrow and then buy things like cars, so your consumption actually goes up. Okay, at lower interest rates, more firms will find that investments are profitable, so they invest more, so your investment also rises. Okay, so consumption and investment, they are all both part of your aggregate demand, so your aggregate demand will increase. If your aggregate demand increases, then via multiplier, your real national income also increases. Okay, so I may want to add in a point here to make sure that I remind everybody that this is via multiplier. AD will affect real national income via the multiplier effect. Right, so this is the whole series of measures that we will see for expansionary monetary policy. Let's go ahead and try to draw our diagrams over here now. Okay, let's draw our diagrams. Now, so many things to draw. So do you remember we got three diagrams? It's the same three diagrams, just drawn in different ways. So with the first diagram is here, diagram 1. Okay, let's go ahead and draw in diagram 1. How does diagram 1 look like? Remember the name of the first diagram? What is it called? X-axis of the second graph. X-axis of the second graph is volume of investment. Okay, do you remember the name of the first graph? What is it called? Can you use the chat box to tell me what's the name? Correct, right? So the name of the first graph is called liquidity preference curve. So we're going to draw in the liquidity preference curve. So this is quantity of money, and this is interest rates. Okay, so our liquidity preference curve looks like that, if you remember. Okay, now we have two lines. We have an increase in money supply. What does it do to interest rates? It causes interest rate to fall from IR0 to IR1. Okay, then next we have our second diagram. Do you remember what's the name of the second diagram? Class, what's the name of the second diagram? MEI. Okay, MEI has an alternative name. It's either marginal efficiency of investment, or it can be MEC, marginal efficiency of capital. They mean the same thing. It's interchangeably used. MEI or MEC. Alright, so let's go on to draw our second diagram, which should be relatively easy for you to draw. Volume of investments, and then interest rate is the other axis. And then it's just a downward sloping curve that shows that if my interest rate fall from IR0 to IR1, my investment will increase from I0 to I1. This is called the MEI curve. And then of course our last curve, okay, what's our last curve to draw? Your last curve is your, this one, it's very simple. Can anybody tell me what's the name of the last graph? Yes, it's just an ADAS graph, nothing too complicated about that. Okay, so it's an ADAS diagram. So AD, how does AD affect real national income is diagram number 3. Okay, so we're going to draw in diagram number 3. So here's real national income, and here's general price level. Okay, if we were originally here and now we are here, okay, what happens? Your real national income increases from Y0 to Y1, so there is an increase in economic growth because of an increase in real national income. Firms hire more factor inputs, which will result in more labor inputs being hired. This will reduce your cyclical unemployment as well. Okay, right. So everybody clear with how do we properly explain monetary policy in both written form and in graphical form? Okay, let's make sure that you master these. So this, because over the whole year you're going to keep writing this again and again and again in your essay answer and case study answers on. So these things you need to be able to explain. The graphs is not always being used on. Okay, it's actually in fact quite rarely used. It's only when your marks, a lot of marks, high mark kind of answer, or when that the question is entirely about monetary policy, then you may need to actually talk a little bit more. You will need the graphs to be there. Okay. So is everybody done? Can I erase this and proceed to the next slide? Okay. Once you're ready, look at the web camera, and then I will know that you're ready, and then I'll erase and move on to the next slide. Okay. Everybody looks ready. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. So let's clear this. Okay, right. What have we explained to you just now? These two things that I've explained to you just now is called the direct transmission mechanism of the monetary policy. I repeat, whatever that I have just taught you is called the direct transmission mechanism of monetary policy. Okay, I'm now going to go through with you an indirect transmission mechanism of monetary policy. Right, so what is the indirect transmission mechanism of monetary policy? So it's actually how interest rate can affect exchange rates. Okay, the brief summary is how interest rates can affect exchange rates. Let's go on to explain how interest rate can affect exchange rate. Now, when I increase interest rate, what actually happens? This is something that we have covered last week. If I increase interest rates, there will actually be this thing called hot money inflow. Hot money inflow means a lot of people want to buy my currency because my interest rates are attractive. So they want to bring their money, put their money here in my country. So they need to buy my currency to put their money in my country. So when they buy my currency, demand for my currency goes up. Then my exchange rate will appreciate. So an interest rate increase will cause your exchange rate to appreciate because of hot money inflow. But what happens when your exchange rate appreciates? When your exchange rate appreciates, your exports actually become more expensive for foreigners to buy. Your locals will find imports cheaper to buy. So your locals will buy more imports while foreigners buy less of your exports. So your X minus M will fall, which will cause your AD to fall. So this is how an increase in interest rate can have an indirect transmission mechanism. What happens if you cut interest rates? If you cut interest rates, okay, people will want to put their money in other countries. They don't want to hold on to your money anymore. They don't want to put their money in your country anymore. So they will start to sell your currency. So when they sell your currency, they are increasing the supply of your domestic currency on the foreign exchange market, which will cause hot money outflow. Hot money outflow makes your currency depreciates. So when your interest rate fall, your country's currency will also depreciate. So your country's currency depreciate, then your exports become cheaper for foreigners to buy. Your imports, your locals will find more expensive to buy. So more people buy your country's goods. Your people buy less of other countries' goods. So your X minus M will rise, which causes your AD to rise. Okay, this is what we call the indirect transmission mechanism of monetary policy. Okay, so I'm going to erase this and move on to the next slide. Okay, so we're going to spend some time talking about this limitations of monetary policy. So what prevents monetary policy from working very well? Now, if policymakers are hoping that, okay, if I change interest rate, you remember what is the purpose of changing interest rate? No? The purpose of changing interest rate is because you think that there is going to be a sizable impact on consumption, there's going to be a sizable impact on investment, then you can change AD, then you can influence the economy in the way you want. Okay, but that is actually kind of wishful thinking. Why is it that it's kind of wishful thinking? It's wishful thinking because you are making one very big assumption that, okay, when I change interest rates, consumption and investment will change. But there is one very important thing to pay attention to. Consumption decisions and investment decisions, they hinge on multiple factors. Let me give you an example. So, like let's say if you're thinking of buying a car, okay, there are many reasons why you would think of buying a car. Like maybe your incomes are going up, that's why you choose to buy a car. Maybe you had a baby, that's why you want to buy a car. Or maybe you have part of your life that you feel that you want to get a car for convenience. Alright, and interest rate will be one of these many factors that formulates your decision to buy a car. So if your interest rates are lower, then you say, okay lah, I can afford the monthly repayments. Okay, so that's also going to be one consideration for buying a car. Right, but interest rate will surely not be the only factor that is going to affect your decision to buy a car. Okay, the next COE bidding by right is supposed to be on 8th of April. Today's date is 5th of April. 8th of April, there is supposed to be a round of COE bidding. We don't know whether that round of COE bidding is going to continue. But if it continues, what do you think will happen to the price of COE class? If this 8 April the COE bidding continue, what do you think will happen to the price of COE? It will confirm fall what? What do you think on people's minds now? Do you think on anybody's minds they are like, okay, let's go out and buy a car, right? Times are great, let's go and buy a car. I think that I don't think anybody is like really doing that right now. Like I don't think that buying a car is on the top of anybody's mind. And then but the fact here is that because of US, right, Singapore's interest rates, we follow the rest of the world while we are the interest rate taker. So our interest rates in Singapore has been falling in the last couple of months as well. So even though interest rates are lower today, I don't think people are rushing out to go and buy cars. Right? In other words, we are saying that consumers and investors, okay, they are not driven by just one single factor like interest rates. They are driven by many other factors as well. So in that case, we say that consumption and investment, they are interest rate inelastic. Let me translate that to simpler English for you. Interest rate inelastic means not responsive to interest rate changes. Okay? Not responsive to interest rate changes. That is the meaning of consumption and investment being interest rate inelastic. Alright? Okay, so let's go on to our next limitation. So the next limitation requires me to take some time to go through with you, and I'm going to show you some graphs as well. Now, liquidity trap. What is the meaning of a liquidity trap? We say that a country is facing a liquidity trap if the country's interest rates are already at 0 or close to 0. Okay, so I'm going to fast forward 3 slides so that you can see this graph. Now let's spend some time examining this graph. So I've got a few questions for you. Okay, I want you to stare at this graph, and then after that I've got a few questions for you. Okay, so I'm gonna put in a few lines. Let's use green. Okay, we'll put in a few lines for you to be able to clearly see what is going on over here. Okay. Okay. Okay, so if you see can I ask you all to pay attention to what were the interest rates like before the global financial crisis? You look at the graph and can you all tell me what were interest rates like? What kind of interest rates Federal Reserve was setting before the global financial crisis happened? What was like kind of like the interest rates like? You can use the chat box to answer my question. What were the interest rates like before the global financial crisis? How many percent? Before, not during. How many percent? I don't want high low, I want to know how many percent. Okay, so it's like 5+%, right? 5+%. So because of the global financial crisis, right, you can see that the Federal Reserve introduced a series of interest rate cuts. What kind of policy do we call that again? We've just learned that. So the Federal Reserve carry out a series of interest rate cuts. So they carry out a series of interest rate cuts that we call expansionary monetary policy. So this action taken is actually expansionary monetary policy. So we know that the Federal Reserve, they carry out expansionary monetary policy aggressively in 2000 in light of the 2008 global financial crisis. So here will be somewhere around 2009. So by year 2009, what happened to interest rates already? By year 2009, what happened to interest rates? Okay, by year 2009, interest rates hit zero, almost zero. Okay, so we're gonna continue this real life lesson. This is very real life, so we're gonna continue this real life lesson. So it was only I think sometime in 2015 or 16 that the Federal Reserve started to increase interest rates again. Okay, they started to increase interest rates slowly. Alright, but they only managed to increase interest rates to how much before they started to reduce them again? They only were able to increase interest rates to about how much before they started to reduce them again? Right, they only managed to increase it to about 2.25%. Right, it was about 2.25% before they started to reduce them again. Right, so in March, those are the two red dots that you see. In March alone, they cut interest rates to almost zero. March was just last month, or just a few days ago. Right, March was just a few days ago. They cut interest rates to close to zero again. Okay, so now let's take some time to actually talk about this concept of a liquidity trap. Okay, what exactly is a liquidity trap? Okay, now let's recap how expansionary monetary policy works. This is how expansionary, let's use another color. How does expansionary monetary policy works? Expansionary monetary policy works this way. First, you increase money supply. Then as you increase money supply, your interest rate will fall. Okay, then when your interest rate fall, it causes your consumption and investment to increase. It causes your consumption and investment to increase. When your consumption and investment increase, your consumption and investment are part of your aggregate demand. So your aggregate demand increase. When your aggregate demand increase, you have increase in real national income. Okay, which brings about higher economic growth. That is how expansionary monetary policy, as we have explained them just now, how it works. Okay, I'm gonna create a wall here. Okay, a wall. Okay, we're gonna create a very, very huge wall here. Now, if interest rates were already zero, can you reduce interest rates to below zero? Can or not? If interest rates were already zero, can interest rates go below zero? Can or not? Cannot, ah. So, if interest rates are already zero, you can't cut interest rates any further. You are creating a huge wall here. Okay? You are creating a huge wall here. You're saying that actually you cannot do anything already because your interest rates refuse to actually drop any further. It's already zero, it can't drop any further. If it can't drop any further, then what are we saying? We are saying that, oh no, actually, right, this whole process cannot continue already. It stops. It doesn't continue. Okay, your AD cannot increase, your consumption investment cannot increase because your interest rate doesn't drop any further. What? It can't drop any further. What? So your monetary policy becomes useless. It doesn't work. It stops working. Okay, so if your interest rates are already zero, then your expansionary monetary policy it ceases to exist. It just can't drop below zero. Okay, some students from a previous class asked me, hey, I heard about this thing called negative interest rates. Can you explain this concept of negative interest rates? Okay, I'm going to tell you this, negative interest rates, they don't exist. Okay, if you read about them in an article, I will explain to you what they mean. But let me tell you why they don't exist. Okay, I'm going to ask all of you this very simple question. Do you have like $100 in savings? You can shake or nod your head. Do you have $100 in savings? You have $100? Okay, now I'm gonna ask you, I'm gonna try to make a deal with you, and then you see if you want to agree to this deal or not, and then you see if this deal makes sense to you or not. Huh? So you think about this clearly. Huh? Okay, I'm gonna ask you, all of you, to let each and every one of you to lend me $100. Okay, everybody lend me $100. Okay, everyone, each of you in this room, all of you lend me $100, and I'm gonna tell you this: I want to pay you a negative interest rate of 1% every month. I repeat, I will. You can charge me a negative interest rate of negative 1% every month. You charge me a negative interest rate of negative 1% every month. Okay, is it a good deal for you? Is it a good deal for you? Can you tell me what does it mean by negative interest rates? If you were to charge me a negative interest rate of negative 1% every month, then how does that work? So how much you pay me? And pay for how long? Yeah, doesn't make sense, right? So, as long as I'm holding on to your money, right, you must pay me $1 every month. Doesn't make sense. Okay, it doesn't make any sense at all. Negative interest rates don't exist in real life. Then you say, okay, what about the articles I read before about negative interest rate? What do they mean? What is the meaning of negative interest rates at all? Now I'm going to take some time to explain to you what's the meaning of negative interest rates and where do you actually see negative interest rates. Now, so when you read about negative interest rates, right, it's actually the relationship between, let me just draw it down. Okay, right, let me explain this to you. Now, sometimes central bank and commercial banks, they can have a relationship as well. What kind of relationship? Sometimes commercial banks, right, they got like some spare cash lying around doing nothing. They will ask the central bank, hey, can I put some money with you? Can I put some money with you? This money will be called deposits. Can I put some deposit with you to accumulate some interest? The central bank will say, okay, I can pay you like some crappy interest. I can pay you some interest, no problem. I can pay you some interest. Very little, small interest. Okay, for the deposits that you put with me. So sometimes central bank does this like as a service lah, like for commercial banks. So some spare cash that commercial banks have, if the central bank, they can put the central bank some spare cash to accumulate some interest. Even banks can do that. Okay, but in times of economic crisis, central banks will say, hey, all of you commercial banks, whatever money you have, like now, this is currently a situation that's like that. Like COVID-19 is a situation like that. So the central bank will say, hey, you all commercial banks, you're all better cooperate and go and lend out as much money as you can to firms. Go and lend out as much money you can to individuals. Help them survive this. Okay? So the central bank will say, hey, you're jolly well, don't put any money with me. So they say, don't put any money with me. Don't. Like, no. They say that if you put money with me, I'm going to charge you. Okay, I'm going to charge you if you put any money with me. And that is how the concept of negative interest rates came about. So they're basically saying, hey, go and take back your money from me. Go and lend this money out. I'm not going to give you any money for putting money with me. Go and lend it out. And that is how the concept of negative interest rates came about. So this negative interest rate relationship is between the central bank and the commercial bank. It's not like for us common folks. Okay, nothing to do with us. So that is, if you ever read about negative interest rates, that's what it's all about. Okay, right. So let's move on to a couple more standard limitations before we conclude this limitation section. The standard limitation of monetary policy is a standard demand management policy limitation, which is that if you try to increase AD, if your multiplier size is small, then your real national income will also increase by a small multiplier extent. If you try to increase AD and multiplier size is big, then your real national income will increase by a large multiplier extent. Okay? Right, time lag. What is the time lag that occurs for monetary policy and the time lag that occurs for fiscal policy are different kinds of time lag. The time lag that occurs for fiscal policy is because government policy makers, they need time to plan. They need time to plan to come up with policies. And then government policy makers, like in the US, right, they always quarrel. They always bicker and argue. So it ends up that the policy takes very long time to pass through, and sometimes it doesn't even pass through. That kind of time lag for fiscal policy, we call it implementation lag. Implementation lag doesn't occur for monetary policy. Why? Now, the central bank of most countries is supposed to be independent of the government. Means they can make decisions independently of the government. So if you are the governor or the chairman of your country's central bank, you have the decision-making power. You can decide when to change interest rates. And when you want to change interest rates, it's a snap of the fingers. It's instant. Okay? You want to change interest rate today, you can change it today. You want to change it tomorrow, you can change it tomorrow. No planning is needed. You can do it immediately. Okay, but in monetary policy, there is this thing called transmission lag. What is transmission lag? Essentially, the long story short is that consumers and investors, even if they want to take advantage of your lower interest rates, they will need time for adjustments. Means to say that, even if you say, oh, okay, I like this lower interest rate, I'm going to go and buy a car now. Or investors say, oh, I like these interest rates, I'm going to go and start a new branch now. Okay, they need time to plan, okay, before they will go and borrow the money, before they will go and consume or invest. That is what we call transmission lag. Okay. Okay, I'm going to draw a very simple diagram to illustrate to you the trade-off of monetary policy. Very, very easy diagram. It's just one single diagram that will help you to see very clearly. Okay, what are the trade-offs of monetary policy? Okay, this is real national income. This is general price level. Okay, and then we are going to draw in your AS curve, with which looks like this. This is your YF and then this is your AS. And we're going to draw in your AD curve. AD curve looks like that. Okay. When you carry out expansionary monetary policy, we shall represent that with blue arrows. When you carry out expansionary monetary policy, you are increasing AD0 to AD1. When you increase AD0 to AD1, the important thing to focus on is that your Y0 will increase to Y1. Okay, that is the purpose of expansionary monetary policy. But you will notice this, that your general price level will go up from P0 to P1. Okay, so as your general price level go up from P0 P1, you see inflation. So you see inflation, okay, as your limitation of expansionary monetary policy. Alright, and then your contractionary monetary policy is that when you carry out contractionary monetary policy, you are cutting AD from AD1 to AD0. So when you do that, your inflation falls, which is what you're trying to achieve. But when you do that, okay, your Y0, your Y1 also goes to Y0, so you have lower economic growth. Okay, firms also hire less factored inputs, causing unemployment to worsen. So your unemployment will actually go up, and then your economic growth will actually fall. Okay, so you can see that those are your trade-offs of monetary policy. Okay, we're going to go through one last concept before we take a 5-minute break, okay, for today. So we're going to go through the trilemma of monetary policy. Now, what is the trilemma of monetary policy? Before we go on to trilemma of monetary policy, I thought that we go through something more interesting to break up the dryness of the lesson. We shall go through the trilemma of life. Okay, what is the trilemma of life? Okay, in life, right? Okay, we say that life sucks. Okay, why life sucks? Not because COVID. Life sucks because in general it just sucks. But why in general it just sucks? Because for most people, right? Okay, you have this trilemma. What is this trilemma? It's the trilemma of time, money, and energy. And why do we call it a trilemma? We call it a trilemma because in life you can have only two of the three at any point in your life. Okay, let's say if you are a 18-year-old student, okay, what is your trilemma? Where are you at on this triangle? If you are an 18-year-old person, okay, you are probably here. You have time, okay, you have time is on, and you're young, you have energy. So if I ask you, do you have the energy to go and backpack Europe for 1 month, 2 months? What would you say? Do you have the energy? You have, right? So if you had an option now, would you want to go to backpack Europe for 2 months with your friends and go and have fun, right? I mean, no COVID lah. If there was no COVID lah, huh? Right, and then the other thing is that you, other than having energy, you also have the time. You are not in a rush to go anywhere. You don't have kids. You don't have mortgages to pay, right? You don't have commitments. You don't have liabilities, right? So you have the time to do the things that you want to do. This is the period of time where you have actually time. I mean, apart from A levels lah, that's the only thing holding you back lah. Okay, but you don't have money, so backpacking Europe is out. Bungee jumping is out because you're short of money. You don't have money. Okay, a working adult in their prime, what do they have? They actually have this. They have they're at sea, which means they have money and they have energy. Okay, they have energy because they are also still young. A working adult in the prime, they still have energy. They can backpack Europe or go and do bungee jumping if they want. But they also have money, but they actually gave up their time to make the money. If you realize, they gave up the time to make the money, so they don't have the time. You can't just leave your work for 2 months and go and backpack Europe, or you can't leave your work for a year to go on a round the world cruise, right? That's just not possible. There's one period of your life that you may have time and money. If you have worked hard your whole life and you retired as a successful person, you might be at A. Now you have time, all the time in the world, okay, to do whatever you want to do, and you have money, but you no longer have the energy to do it. If you're 80-year-old, I don't think you're going to bungee jump. You will break your neck or something. Okay, you won't go skydiving either, you have a heart attack. You won't backpack Europe, the luggage is too heavy. Okay, right, so this is the trilemma of life. Let's go on to explain the trilemma of monetary policy, which is the concept here is very, very similar. Okay, except that the three things that you can choose from now and you can only choose two are that you can control interest rates, you can control exchange rates, or you can choose to have free capital flow. Let me first explain to you what is the meaning of free capital flows. Free capital flows means that you want to allow money to come into the country and exit without your intervention. Means as a government you are saying that okay, we welcome people to bring their money in and bring their money out of the countries. We will not impose any restrictions on capital inflows and capital outflows, and that includes hot money. So they're not going to touch hot money. They just say that you can do whatever you want. You bring money into the country, bring money out of the country, none of my business. That is the meaning of free capital flow. So you can choose to have any two of these three things here, including free capital flow, any two of the three things. Now, where is US? A, B, or C? Where is US? Can you tell me where is US? Is US at A, B, or C? Okay, correct. So US, Japan, the Eurozone, they all choose C. Can you tell me where is China? Where's China? Okay, yes, China is actually here. And then where's Singapore? Where's Singapore at? Correct, Singapore is actually here. Okay, let me explain to you why this trilemma exists. We start from the viewpoint of United States. Okay, so what is United States? United States choose to control interest rates and they choose to have free capital flow. Why does controlling interest rates and having free capital flow means that you forego your choice of controlling exchange rate? Let me explain to you why. If you control interest rate, let's say controlling interest rate means you can anytime increase or decrease your interest rate at your will. You can increase or decrease interest rate at your will. Let's say you increase interest rates. Okay? If you increase interest rates, okay, what is going to happen that we learn? There will be hot money inflow. And hot money inflow means people see that your interest rates are attractive, they want to buy your currency to put money in your country, right? That is the meaning of hot money inflow. So when they buy your currency, what happens to demand for your currency? Increases, right? So when demand for your currency increases, what happens to your exchange rate? It will appreciate. Now, if you say you are going to have free capital flow, means let's say if 10,000 people want to buy your currency, 10,000 people can buy your currency. If 100,000 people want to buy your currency, 100,000 people can buy your currency. If 10 million people want to buy your currency, 10 million people can buy your currency. You have no control over how many people buy your currency and how much do they buy. Means to say how much your exchange rate appreciate by is not in your control. Means you gave up exchange rate control already. Because you allow for free capital flow what? And you change interest rate what? Then you can't stop what happens with the people buying your currency what? You can't limit people what? You can't say, oh, you can only buy this amount of my currency. Oh, I don't want my currency to appreciate beyond this level. No, this is outside your control because you choose to have free capital flow and you choose to control interest rate. Automatically, you are leaving exchange rate to the free market forces. You are not controlling it. Make sense? And so the reverse is true for Singapore. So the reverse is true for Singapore. We are saying that for Singapore, hey, hello, we don't want our exchange rate to fluctuate freely. No, we don't want that. If we don't want that, then we cannot control interest rates. Make sense? So if we have free capital flow, okay, and we want to have control over exchange rate, then we must cross out interest rates. That makes sense. So that's for Singapore. Then if you're wondering, hey, China, how does it work for China? How come China so powerful? China can control everything? The answer is very simple. It's because they don't have free capital flow. They choose not to have free capital flow. Now imagine this happens for China. If China interest rate go up, and by right there should be hot money inflow, which will cause exchange rate to appreciate. Now here is China's what China does. China say no free capital flow. You want to buy my currency? Ask me for permission. You want to sell my currency? Ask me for permission. You want to bring money into my country? Ask me for permission. You bring money out of my country? Ask me for permission. I never give permission, cannot do. Right? That is China, right? Restricting capital flow, right? So if China restricts capital flows, then it can prevent hot money from coming in. Then it will prevent exchange rate from appreciating uncontrollably. So it means to say that China can control both interest rates and also can control exchange rates. Yeah, I hope that helps you understand what is this trilemma of monetary policy is all about. Okay, the time now that I see is on my watch is 1:12. I'm gonna give you 5 minutes. During these 5 minutes, please go and walk around your house. Don't continue staring at the screen. Go and get a drink, grab a snack. Keep yourself awake, right? Stay fresh. Come back in 5 minutes. You can turn off your web cameras during this period if you want. Okay, when you come back, then you turn it back on. So you take a 5 minute break. Come back in 5 minutes time, and we'll continue with the balance of the session in 5 minutes from now. Okay, so let's take a break. Come mid lesson break. Let's do that. Hello, welcome back. Web cameras on to let me know you're back so that we can resume with class. So once everybody is back, let me have your web cameras on so that I know you're back so I can continue. So looks like still quite a number of students not there. Hey, those of you who are back, web cameras back on so that we know that you're back so that we can continue with class. Okay, right. So a student was just texting me to say that she couldn't come back to the session. The reason why she cannot come back to the session was probably because Keith might have kicked her out because we couldn't verify her identity. So if your web cameras are spoiled or cannot be turned on, then you have to let Keith know so that Keith can take note, and then don't use like generic name like student. Like that one confirm we have to kick you out. We cannot see who you are and then we don't know who you are. We have to kick you out because we don't know whether or not you are just some random stranger coming into our class. Okay, right. So please do pay attention to that, and as much as possible, web cameras should be on so that we can verify your identity. All right. So Keith, you can help her to come back to the class. Right. I'm going to continue with the class now. Usually entering with another device helps. Well, the worst case scenario always is that you can use your mobile phones, although it won't be the ideal situation, but you can use your mobile phones to come back in. Okay, so this is a recap portion of our lesson. Why does Singapore use exchange rate instead of interest rates? Given that we were talking about interest rates the whole day today, we should recap to talk about why Singapore uses exchange rate instead of interest rate. So this is what we have already gone through last week. Now, first of all, why do we not want to use interest rate is because the primary way that interest rate work is that they target consumption and they target investment. The problem with consumption in Singapore, the problem with consumption in Singapore is that our domestic population is very small. Okay, not only our domestic market is very small, there's also high leakages. High leakages because a lot of the things that we buy are imported goods. If we buy imported goods, it doesn't help our locals in terms of the circle for income, doesn't help us. The money exits the economy. Okay, and then the other thing is that although investment is pretty big in Singapore, a lot of our investment is FDI. And if a lot of them are FDI, they are interest rates inelastic. Remember we said that that means that they are not responsive to interest rate changes. Why are they not responsive to interest rate changes? If you're FDI that's coming to Singapore to invest, you probably already have money from your home country to invest. Or if you need to take up a loan, you can take up a loan from your home country banks. Don't need to take up from Singapore banks. Means they're not responsive to interest rate changes in Singapore. So the problem with interest rate is that they target consumption and investment, and that's not such a good idea to target in the context of Singapore. Okay, so next, we are very small economy. Now imagine in a hypothetical world that we set our own interest rates. What will happen if we set our own interest rates? If we set our own interest rates, if interest rate were to increase, then it will attract hot money inflow. What is the problem with attracting hot money inflow? Imagine Singapore is so small and the amount of Sing dollars that are around in circulation because of the nature that we are so small and there's limited number of us going around. There will also be limited amount of our currency going around. Imagine if the whole world is trying to buy Sing dollars because our interest rates are more attractive. If the whole world is trying to buy Sing dollars, your Sing dollars is going to appreciate, like how kind of appreciate, is going to appreciate a lot. Okay, your Sing dollar is going to shoot up like that, right? So your exchange rate is going to appreciate very significantly. So it will cause very major fluctuations in our exchange rate, which is not desirable. So we don't want that. So we don't want to control interest rates. Okay, and why we want to control our exchange rate is because trade is the most important part of our economy. Okay, trade is the most important part of our economy, and the ability to control our exchange rate allows us to control the prices of our exports and allows us to control the prices of our imports, which is very important for us. Okay, and lastly, even when we want to carry out policies to deal with inflation, we have to bear in mind that a lot of our inflation is actually imported. A lot of our inflation are actually imported. Okay, like for example, rice in Singapore is going to become more expensive if rice in other countries become more expensive. And in view of the COVID-19 crisis, okay, if we have not enough eggs, we must go and fly in our eggs through Changi Airport, then eggs is going to be a lot more expensive as well. So a lot of our inflation, they are imported, okay, which means to say we need to control our exchange rate, because if we're able to maintain control of exchange rate, we can make our exchange rate stronger. If we make our currency stronger, then our imported goods will become cheaper. Okay, so which brings us to our last slide here. Okay, what did MAS do to the Sing dollar on Sing dollar nominal effective exchange rate? Sing dollar nominal effective exchange rate. If you're wondering what is the long form for this, I'll send you an article that you can spend some time reading if you want, but you don't have to, because we already discussed this last week. We already kind of predicted everything that MAS would do this week, right? And everything that we discussed last week actually will exactly what MAS did on Monday. We already discussed these things last week, and MAS actually did these things that we discussed on Monday, 30th March. Alright, so I'm going to take some time to draw some graphs and explain to you actually what the MAS do. So all you need to do is just simply to pay attention to me. So I'm going to show you what MAS did. I'm going to show it to you in graphical form also, so that you are able to understand, try to understand what exactly is going on with monetary policy in Singapore. Hey, what was the first thing that the MAS did? The first thing that MAS did was that they moved the Sing dollar from a modest and gradual appreciation, okay, to a 0% appreciation stance. Okay, that was the first thing that the MAS did. That they moved from a modest and gradual appreciation of the Sing dollar to a 0% appreciation. Now, what does that even mean? What does it mean by modest and gradual appreciation of the Sing dollar to a 0% appreciation? So what exactly did MAS do? Okay, so I'm going to show you what MAS did. Okay, what did they do? Okay, first, I want you to recall what we went through last week. I told you that MAS set two policy bands, right? an upper limit to the currency movement and a lower limit to the currency movement, right? MAS set two policy bands, right? Actually, how the policy bands in reality, how do they look like? In reality, how the policy band look like is that it looks like this. They are not two horizontal straight lines. They are actually, the policy bands are actually gently sloping upwards. Okay, these gently sloping upward policy bands allows the MAS to actually guide the currency towards a modest and gradual appreciation of the exchange rate. It means over time, because the policy bands, right, is sloping upwards, over time, right, the lowest value that the currency can be, right, is actually going up, and the highest value that the currency can be is also going up. So over time, right, the MAS wants the currency to be guided towards a modest and gradual appreciation, and to do so, the policy bands are gently sloping upwards. Okay, so the bands are gently sloping upwards. That was before. Okay, now so what has happened now? Okay, what has happened in this latest policy review? Okay, in this latest policy review, and this is what MAS did. Oops, sorry. In this later policy review, this is what MAS did. Okay, they made the slope flat. Is neutral. It's no longer gently sloping upwards. Okay, so they don't want the currency to be moving on a path towards modest and gradual appreciation anymore. They want the policy bands to be neutral. I know my graph is not very straight lah, so it looks a bit slanted. So but what you're supposed to draw is a horizontal line, two horizontal lines. So from upward sloping policy bands to a neutral slope policy bands. This is the first thing that MAS did. Okay, that's the first thing that MAS did. Okay, what was the second thing that the MAS did? Okay, in this policy review, they did two things. Okay, the second thing they did. Okay, the second thing that they did was to recenter the policy bands to the current prevailing exchange rate as the midpoint. Okay, my English not very good so I will draw it out for you to show you what exactly happened. This one we only need one graph, we don't need two graphs. So we only need one graph. Oops, not very good. Okay. Now, so if this was originally what MAS was doing, what are they doing now? First of all, can you tell me what happened? What did we discuss about the Sing dollar? What did we discuss about Sing dollar last week? What was happening to the demand for the Sing dollar in the last 1 to 2 months? What has been happening to the Sing dollar demand for Sing dollar in the last 1 or 2 months? Use the chat box. So if the demand for Sing dollar was decreasing, and we shall use another color to show the demand for Sing dollar decreasing. Okay, so if the demand for Sing dollar decreased from DD0 to DD1, so the new price of Sing dollar will be P1. Is P1 still within the range of the policy bands? Is P1 still within the range of the policy bands? Yes, right? It's still within the bands of the policy, the range of the policy bands, right? But MAS now wants to recenter the two red lines by using P1 as the new center point, as the new midpoint. Okay? And so when they do that, okay, what they're simply doing is this. They're making the P1 now the midpoint of the bands. So in effect, right, they are actually moving the policy band downwards to make P1 the new midpoint. Instead of P0 being the midpoint, P1 is now the new midpoint. So they make the current prevailing level the new midpoint. So this, if you see, it gives it more room for the currency to depreciate a little bit further. It gives the currency more room to depreciate if there is a need for the currency to depreciate. Because your new minimum point is no longer the red line, your new minimum point is the green line. So it gives the currency a bit more room for depreciation. Okay? So this is the first time in the last 10 years that MAS did both actions simultaneously. Okay, so these are the two things that MAS did. If you want to take a picture, you can feel free to take a picture. Got colors. It's helpful. Alright, so if you're done, when you're done, just look up to the web camera so I know you're done. Then I will go ahead and erase the slide. Okay, so I think you're done, right? What's the first word for the second approach? Recenter. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and erase this already. Last call for photo taking. Last call for photo taking. This is the last slide here. Can explain again how does a 0% appreciation policy stance help? So this is a review of last week's lesson. So last week's lesson we actually covered that. So if you are carrying out modest and gradual appreciation, it's only when there is inflation. But we don't have inflation now. Inflation doesn't exist now. So carry out a stronger Sing dollar will only make our exports more expensive. So when we stop making our exports more expensive, we are helping our exports. So that's why we move on to a 0% appreciation. We also don't want to move on to a depreciation either. Because a depreciation doesn't help us because it makes our imported goods, our necessities more expensive. So we also don't want to move to a depreciation. So we don't want appreciation and we don't want depreciation at this juncture. So we keep to a 0% appreciation, which is the best thing to do right now already. Okay? Okay, any other questions before I move on to the next set of slides? Okay, let's go on to the next set of slides. Okay, and now we move on to this concept called quantitative easing. Now, I'm sure you have heard of this term quantitative easing before. You just may not understand what it means by quantitative easing. Okay, so what exactly is quantitative easing? Now, we've seen just now the graph, the Federal Reserve graph, that because of global financial crisis, right, within a 1 year time frame, right, your Federal Reserve, right, it cut interest rate, cut interest rate, cut interest rate, cut interest rate, cut interest rates, cut until eventually it reaches zero. Then we also explained that when the moment you reach zero, right, your economy enters the liquidity trap. Okay, why it enters the liquidity trap? So if you remember, okay, I will just draw one last time, just for recap's sake, what happens when you cut interest rates too much. Okay, if you were to increase money supply, okay, if you were to increase money supply, it's because you want to cut interest rates. Why do you want to cut interest rates? You want to cut interest rates because when you cut interest rates, consumption and investment will increase. Why do you want consumption and investment to increase? Because when your consumption increase, investment increase. Consumption and investments are part of your AD. Why do you want your AD to increase? You want your AD to increase because you want real national income to increase. Okay, why do you want real national income to increase? Okay, you want real national income to increase because you want to have economic growth. Okay, and you want to lower unemployment. Okay, so that is why you want to do this. This is why you want to carry out expansion monetary policy. This is why you want to cut interest rates. But remember, I told you just now, when your interest rates are already zero, what happens? When your interest rates are already zero, you are putting a wall here. You're saying that everything from here onwards, it doesn't work. If your interest rates are already zero, you cannot cut it any further. If you cannot cut it any further, then nothing beyond this line works. It doesn't work anymore. Okay, so the moment your interest rates reach zero, your monetary policy stops working entirely. Okay, so if it stops working entirely, then what's the point? What's the point of carrying out? What's the point of carrying out this? Okay. Okay, what's the point of increasing money supply? No point increasing money supply any further. No use. Okay, so that is how the concept of quantitative easing came about. Alright, so quantitative easing is trying to be creative. It's trying to go against what you normally do. It's to do what you normally don't do. Okay, like what? Okay, so what exactly is quantitative easing? Now, so this one requires us to review what we have discussed just now. First of all, can you remember when the Federal Reserve carry out expansionary monetary policy, the Federal Reserve goes to the open market to buy what? Use the checkbox to tell me. So when the Federal Reserve wants to carry out expansionary monetary policy, it goes to the open market, it go and buy what from financial institutions. Can you all be more specific? Is it just one word? Is it just bonds? Okay, it's not just bonds, be very clear here. They are government bonds. They go to the financial institutions, they go to the commercial banks, they buy government bonds. Then when they buy government bonds, they take a whole truckload of cash to hand to the commercial banks, right? Remember that? So they hand over cash to the commercial banks, then tell them, hey, go and lend out this money. Okay, but when interest rates are really zero, they figured that if I continue buying government bonds, also no use, then no point doing that. Okay, now so the Federal Reserve decided that, okay, I'm going to be creative and I'm going to take some risk. I'm going to do risky things. Like what? I'm going to take all the money that I have, and instead of buying government bonds, I'm going to go and buy all kinds of other things. Okay, like I'm going to buy corporate bonds. I'm going to buy mortgage-backed securities. Some students ask me what's mortgage-backed securities. Unfortunately, this is not something I can cover within this lesson. You can go and watch this movie on Netflix. I'm sure you have a lot of time for Netflix now. Right? So you can go and watch this movie on Netflix. It's called The Big Short. This is a 2-hour plus movie that you can watch, okay, to understand what the heck are mortgage-backed securities. Some students, like me, I needed 2 times. I needed to watch it twice to understand what was mortgage-backed securities. You might need 3 times. Okay, so it's not one lesson I can teach you what mortgage-backed securities are. But the long story short is that the Federal Reserve, okay, let me explain to you what happened during the global financial crisis. During the global financial crisis, the sectors that were hit were the one, financial sector. That's why it's called global financial crisis. The other sector that was hit was the property sector, real estate sector. Those were the two sectors that were hit. In this current COVID-19 crisis, the first sector that was hit was aviation, tourism, retail, food and beverage. The second wave, everybody. So, in other words, okay, what the Federal Reserve did back then in the 2008 global financial crisis, they were saying, hey, how many of you firms you are not doing well because nobody want to lend you money. Nobody want to lend you money because they scared of you. Never mind, I will take the risk. Nobody want to lend you money, I will go to the open market and I will buy up all these assets that are considered to be toxic. Means nobody want to take the risk to lend your money, never mind. Your bonds, right, I buy. I will be the one that buy all your bonds. Okay? So the Federal Reserve basically went to help firms put money in the hands of these firms by buying these financial instruments like corporate bonds, like mortgage-backed securities. Okay, so when they did that, okay, what would they do? They are putting they're putting money in the hands of these financial sectors. They're putting money in the hands of these property, real estate sectors. They're saying, hey, nobody wants to lend you money, right? Okay, you are issuing these corporate bonds, nobody is buying, right? Never mind, I buy from you. I put money in your hands. Okay, so now these firms, they're like, oh, okay, here's some relief. I can finally have some money to invest. Okay, so they take this money, they go and invest. So I will increase. Okay, that's the first thing that happens. The second thing that happens is like, let's make some predictions about the stock market. If let's say if the government say CapitaLand, let's say CapitaLand, I give you an example, CapitaLand, you know what's CapitaLand, right? They build shopping malls, you know, right? So let's say government say, oh, CapitaLand is not doing well. I am going to make sure that CapitaLand has all the money that it needs. If CapitaLand need to borrow money, as the government, I will lend. If you hear such good news, right, what will you do in the stock market? Will you buy more CapitaLand, more stocks, or you sell more CapitaLand stocks? Buy or sell? You will buy, right? You buy, right? Because hey, that's good news. You think that they will eventually do better. So the stock markets will actually start to rise. All these firms that the Federal Reserve helps, right, their stock prices will start to go up. When the stock prices go up, a lot of the households, right, they hold some of their wealth, right, in stocks. So the household's wealth also go up. So the household's wealth go up, and more money, consumption go up. Okay, and then so in summary, right, what is the Federal Reserve doing? Number one, who got no money? Never mind, I buy their bonds from them. Okay, I put money in their hands so they can invest. Number two, I buy so many things. Okay, the stock prices will start to go up. When the stock prices start to go up, households' wealth go up, consumption rises. Number three, by signaling that I am coming in to help, I am boosting confidence in the market, so people become more optimistic. Then consumption and investment will rise. Okay, so this is what we call quantitative easing. So this version of quantitative easing we are learning today is the US version, which is the one that is most commonly being asked about. Now, so if one thing that we should know about this is, so what is the difference exactly between quantitative easing and your normal conventional monetary policy that we went through in the first half of the lesson? Okay, what is conventional monetary policy about? Conventional monetary policy, the focus is on buying and selling of government bonds because you want to change money supply. Okay, quantitative easing, government bonds is not the main focus anymore. Quantitative easing is like, okay, I need to buy what, I will go in and buy. I will not restrict myself to government bonds. But actually, the central bank will be therefore taking on some risk because some of these firms may shut down. If these firms shut down, then whatever bonds that this central bank buy, it becomes worthless. Okay, so the central bank is actually taking some risk by buying these corporate bonds. What is another difference? Okay, your normal monetary policy, it works through interest rate as a policy instrument. The focus is on interest rate. Whereas quantitative easing, we don't care about interest rates anymore because interest rates are already zero anyway. Quantitative easing is to make sure that who needs money gets the money to spend. Okay, whoever needs money, I need to come in and help. Okay, so quantitative easing is actually an expanded form of monetary policy. Okay, so right now we have come to the end of the lesson. There is a couple more things that you need to do. I'm going to give you 3 articles to read about what is happening in the US now. Okay, you can take some time to read. After you finish reading, okay, if you have no questions to ask, you are free to log off from the session. If you have questions to ask, turn on your microphones, okay, because the lesson has actually ended already. It's the Q&A section of the lesson already. Turn on your microphones and proceed to go ahead and just ask any questions that you have. So give me a minute, I'm going to share with you the links now, the 3 links of the articles that I want you all to be reading. Article number 1, article number 2. You might want to read them in chronological order by checking out the date of the article. You try to read them in chronological order, check the date, then read them based on the date. Okay, so these 3 articles you read already, then you got any questions, then please go ahead and ask. Alright? Okay, so if you have questions, just turn on your microphones and go ahead and ask. So once you finish reading, you got questions, turn on your microphones and ask. Okay, right, if you're finished reading, please, you have questions to ask, please do go ahead and ask about the articles or about any part of the lesson as well. You can go ahead and ask. This part of the lesson is supposed to be Q&A, so got any questions, please do ask. Just turn on your microphones and ask. Let me see if I've got the microphones part. Yeah, you can unmute yourself. You can unmute yourself and ask questions if you have any questions. Okay, so anyway, I was just wondering, how's the video quality on Zoom, that you see, when you see my video stream, right? How's the video quality? Is it okay? Is the video quality okay? And then when the PowerPoint slides show, right, are they of good quality also when they show? They are good quality. Okay, that's good. That's good to hear. Cause sometimes some of my friends who are also teachers, as in they are school teachers, they sometimes say that their quality lacks to some extent. Okay, so you got any questions? Please do ask. Make the opportunity to ask. I mean, this is how lessons are going to have to be like. During the lesson time, you're going to be muted because we have too many students and everybody asks questions at the same time. It'll be very messy. But towards the end of the lesson, we can do this. I got questions, you can just turn on your microphones and ask. Don't be shy. Yeah.
Yeah, so can I say the quantitative easing is actually a complement policy for your conventional monetary policy?
Yes, it's not a complement, it's an extension of monetary policy to be used when your interest rates are already zero. So you cannot cut interest rates any further.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Welcome. So got a question, just unmute yourself. You can go ahead and ask. Don't need to be shy. You're gonna do this for a month. You're gonna keep quiet for a month, man. Cannot be, right?
Mr. Tu,
Yes.
what's the downside of restricting capital flow?
What's the downside of restricting capital flow? So if you were an investor, right, and you were thinking of investing in the country, right, one of the key things you're gonna want to consider is, can I move my money? If you're a small firm, nobody cares lah. If you're a small firm, the money you move, nobody will care one lah. Because you few $100, few $1,000, even tens of thousands of dollars, nobody is gonna care you move money in and out. That kind of small sum lah. We're talking about millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, like maybe like firms like Google, right? If they want to start a company if Google, for example, want to start a company in China, right, or countries that restrict capital flow, they got to be very careful because they're gonna wonder, hey, I put so much money into this country, if I make money, can I bring the money out or not? So having restrictive capital flows, right, is going to warrant these kind of considerations when firms want to carry out investments. So that's something to take into consideration. So that's the reason why most countries in the world, they have free capital flows. We don't place restrictions on capital flows.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. How Singapore control exchange rate and free capital flow but not interest rate? Okay, it's not how we control exchange rate and free capital flow and not interest rate. It's more like why we don't choose to control interest rates. Okay, we don't choose to control interest rates because if we control interest rate, right? And we have free capital flow. When we increase interest rates, for example, there will be hot money inflow. And the hot money inflow will be a tremendous amount of hot money inflow that is not within our control. So if there's a lot of hot money inflow, it causes your exchange rate to appreciate. If your exchange rate appreciate a lot, for example, what is it going to do to your exports? It's going to make your exports very, very, very expensive and nobody will buy your exports. So that is something that you don't want to happen. So because of that, you don't want to control interest rates, because changing interest rates and having free capital flow will have unimaginable repercussions on your exchange rate that you cannot control. So it's not about that you want to control exchange rate per se, but also about that when you control interest rates, there will be negative repercussions on your exchange rates. How does purchasing assets save trapped sectors? Purchasing assets is just basically a term for going up to buy bonds, buy corporate bonds. So if the government buys, let's say if I issue economics at tuition genius bonds at this juncture and I ask you all, hey, you want to buy economics at tuition genius bonds or not? You all will say no. Why no? Because economics at tuition genius is a company that has a risk of going bankrupt. So you won't buy. Okay, that we have a risk. But the government is saying, oh, so nobody want to buy from you ah? Okay, never mind, I buy. I buy these bonds. Right? So the government say I buy these bonds, so that they're basically putting money in your hands. Okay, so that you can go and invest. You can continue to run your business and continue to invest. So that is very important. Alright, so that is how purchasing assets save trapped sectors. Trilemma section for China. Okay, so trilemma section for China, this is how it works. So how come China can control interest rate and control exchange rate? Is because it gives up free capital flow. How does giving up free capital flow allow China to control both interest rate and exchange rate? Let's say China increases interest rates. In a country where there is free capital flow, there will be hot money inflow. If there's hot money inflow, then your exchange rate will appreciate. But in China's case, when China increases interest rate, okay, if there's hot money inflow, they can say stop, cannot come in. So it can continue to control its exchange rate, no problem. So exchange rate is still within its control. It won't have like fluctuation in the exchange rate just because there is hot money inflow, because it's able to stop. It's able to control how much money come in, how much money go out. So your exchange rate doesn't fluctuate up and down like other countries. Okay, so that is why China actually doesn't have free capital flow. It has restrictive capital flows. Hey, y'all ask question, use microphone lah. Don't like tap lah. That's so difficult. Does restrict the capital flow has the same effect for controlling interest rate or exchange rate? Restricting capital flow prevents changing interest rate from affecting your exchange rates. Okay, any other questions? Anyone? Don't need to be shy. Got question, just ask. In contractionary monetary policy, won't the government lose money due to interest rates, and also since they keep the money? Okay, this one is a good question. When the government carries out contractionary monetary policy, right? Okay, they reduce the money supply available in the economy, right? Then this money, right, they keep, they don't spend, they keep, they like in a drawer, in an imaginary drawer, they keep it, they don't take it out. Okay, in reality, it's just in digital form, so you don't need to do anything to it. So just keep it there. Don't touch. It's not the money for the government to spend. So when the central bank carries out contractionary monetary policy, the money that they have, they keep it. And then in time to come, right, when they want to carry out expansionary monetary policy, right, then they deploy this money out. They say, okay, now we use this money, put it back. So it's like a custodian like that. It doesn't like, okay, like take this money and then anyhow spend, or it doesn't take this money and then after that do indiscriminate things to it, unless you are from a corrupt country, then okay, maybe. Right? The central bank doesn't do any spending. It doesn't take the money and then give the government to spend. It just takes this money and then it's basically moving money around here and there, okay, to help the economy. So it creates money when it needs to, and then it destroys money if it needs to. Okay? When is it relevant to bring the trilemma? The trilemma, you typically don't bring in one. It's more of an understanding issue. Because you don't understand the trilemma, then you don't understand why different countries use different policies. So it's not so much of like, okay, when do I need to explain the trilemma? You almost never need to explain the trilemma. But the trilemma helps you to understand, oh, how come this country choose to use this policy? How come this country used to choose that policy? How come China's so funny? Right? So trilemma helps you to understand that, as opposed to the case that they'll ask you, oh, please explain the trilemma. No, it doesn't work that way. Okay, any other questions? Anyone?
Yes, so the USA already has a budget deficit, right? Then where do they get the money to do their quantitative easing?
So like I can tell you already, right? The government, right, is separate from the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve, right, has the power to create money. But when it creates this money, right, it cannot take this money to spend one. When it creates this money, right, it is creating this money just to actually create and add to the loanable funds available in the economy. Right? And then at a later juncture, right, when they carry out contractionary monetary policy, right, they will collect back this money one ma. Then when they collect this money, right, they will destroy it, so it will disappear from the economy. Okay, so it's not like the Federal Reserve print money so that the US government can use. No. Okay, so when the Federal Reserve wants, when the central government, okay, the US government wants to spend money, it needs to actually, like everybody else, borrow. And then when they borrow, they need to pay interest. So it's not like printing free money for you to use. Okay, any other questions? Anyone? Okay, if you have no more questions, then you can log off for the day. I will see you guys next week. Tomorrow I'll send a mass message with the new links for the new week. I might revise some of the timings lah. Maybe don't need to be so late because you won't be in school already ma. If you won't be in school already, then I don't think the live streams, especially the weekday live stream, need to be so late. Especially since I noticed that very few people actually come for the weekday live streams in the evening, especially when they're too late in the evening. We'll probably bring some forward to like maybe late afternoon or something. Do you have any indications? Do you have any indications like how late will school be until when you're at home? What time the school ends when you're at home? Right, it's very strange, right? So you're attending school but you're at home. So what time the school exactly ends? Yeah, and then I saw some students like they put like virtual background, but the virtual background is like a stationary photo of themselves. Wow, very very clever. So, but you think people don't know? You think I don't know that what your face is there, but it's the same for the whole 2 hours, man? Teachers are not stupid, right? Hello, right? So you'll be discovered one lah. Don't do these kind of things lah. Okay. Anyway, so if you have no more questions, then I hope everybody is safe and healthy and well. I'll see you all next week for class. Okay. By the way, you can attend any amount of sessions you want one. So like you monetary policy attend session 1, then wow, don't understand. You can attend session 2 again, and then that's the beauty about live stream. You can attend like 1,000 sessions if you want. Okay, you can keep attending until you get it. You don't have to just attend one session. Right? Any lesson that you feel a little bit more puzzled by, you can attend again. Okay. Then I also send you the J1 links also because I think if you want to attend J1 lessons simultaneously and you got nothing better to do, might as well. That's the reason I put the J1 links there as well. So you can also attend J1 class simultaneously. So within the same week, you can attend both the J1 class and J2 class. Okay, don't let this COVID thing affect your studies. Alright, do whatever you can. A levels is still there. Okay, any other questions, anyone? Okay, it usually don't have significant repercussions unless you are a big country lah. Like for example US. So if US increase, okay, if US cut its interest rates, okay, then what happens is that when US cut its interest rate, then US will see consumption investment rise. Then when US see consumption investment rise, US AD will rise. If US AD rise, then US real national income will rise. If US real national income rise, then Americans will have more money in their pocket. They have more money in their pocket, they buy more goods and services. When they buy more goods and services, then they buy more imported goods as well. Their imported goods are other countries' exports. So other countries' exports will benefit. So other countries' X minus M will rise, and other countries' AD will rise, other countries' real national income will rise. This is just one thing you can write about. Another thing you can write about is that, of course, if US interest rate go up, US currency will appreciate. But when US currency appreciate means the rest of the other countries will depreciate against the US dollar. Then you can explain what happens when these other currencies depreciate against the US dollar. That is another thing you can discuss. Bye bye. I was saying bye to Alfred, I was not saying bye to everybody. So if you got question, don't need to bye bye me yet. You can continue asking one. Bye bye, see you. Okay, so I'm gonna end the session here since everybody seems to have no more questions. I'll see you guys. Take care.